Checking in once again, this time on a Tuesday with the Chief of Police in Battle Creek, Jim Blocker, and Calhoun County Sheriff Matt Saxton. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Welcome back.
Good morning, Richard.
We have a number of things on our agenda today, but our intent was to talk a little bit about cold cases and missing persons cases and how you go about trying to deal with those, and we will talk about that. At a busy time right now, you have a new headquarters building in Battle Creek going up, and I think there's a new phase about to get started, isn't there?
That's right, Richard. Currently, they are pouring the footings for the building itself. It's pretty exciting to watch this thing go up.
Yeah.
And, a little bit of traffic closure in and out of the Justice Complex, working hard to make sure everybody understands the new flow. But I think as soon as we're done with some of this exterior wall work, everything will be back to normal.
All right. So when can you move in?
Well, we certainly expect about 12 to 14 months from now to have a grand opening, which we're, of course, pretty excited about.
Yeah, a little bit of time to be patient and wait here.
Exactly.
All of that goes on. Yesterday we talked with Michael McClear of the fire safety organization Escape. We were talking about the move-over law back in the spotlight again after this terrible accident last week in Comstock on I-94. It is the law that when there is a vehicle on the shoulder and we are approaching, if there's the opportunity to move over in a multi-lane situation, we are required to do that, right?
That's exactly right, Richard. And it shouldn't take a fatal accident to bring it back in the spotlight. We have men and women from first responders, fire, police, EMS, wrecker service on the freeways every day. But that law is not just out on the freeway. You need to slow down on the secondary roads and give the men and women doing their duties the opportunity to get back in their car and go home at the end of the day.
Is it your perception that there are a fair amount of people who don't know this law is out there?
Back when I was on the traffic unit, working I-94, and it was still at the time of the inception of this law, it was a lot worse then than it is now, I think.
Mm-hmm.
We see a lot more people that are obeying the law and moving over, but still not everyone. And most states have the move-over law, so even out-of-state folks can't have the excuse that they didn't know. That's
interesting because sometimes I've observed that if a car hasn't moved over, it might have a different state's plate on it, and I wondered about that.
But it's move over and slow down. Mm-hmm. So even if you can't move over, you need to attempt to slow down, give as much space to those folks working those incidents on the side of the roadway.
And that's dangerous work, obviously. And, there's all kinds of reasons why all of you might be out there. For example, I hit a retread on I-94 in Kalamazoo County not long ago. And afterward, I talked with a sheriff's deputy from Kalamazoo County who went out there and picked it up off the road in the middle of traffic. And he just went and did it. That's part of the job. It's pretty amazing what might lead to someone in a first responder situation being out on a busy roadway like that. Incredible.
Well, most of our folks are out there more than they want to be.
Yeah, I'll bet.
It's a busy roadway, but not just on 94, I-69,
sure.
M66, the penetrator here in town. All those areas have a lot of traffic, and unfortunately, along with the high amount of traffic, it adds to a higher rate of incidents. So it puts law enforcement, firefighters, EMS, wrecker drivers out there.
Everybody. Law of averages. We, some time ago, started talking a little about this, the notion of cold cases and missing persons cases. There's been a missing persons case in Kalamazoo County that's been getting attention lately. Let's talk about cold cases first. Do we have a fair amount of those on the books now?
Unfortunately, local here in Calhoun County, in the sheriff's office alone, we have 5 that we continue to look at, spread throughout the county. Convis Township, most notable the Carrie Evans incident from 1983. And we continue to look at that. In fact, the case file is on the detective sergeant's desk as we speak. So we have some information that came in that we're going to try and follow up on with that. But we also have one Homer Township, Albion Township, Marshall Township is a hit and run accident, and the newest of the cold cases, and that's from the mid 2000s. Young man by the last name of Kidder was struck while walking on the side of the road, and we are still looking into that and follow up on leads.
Man, how about in the city, Chief?
Well, we still have a number of cold cases. Again, some of them going back all the way to the 1930s. And the whole point is the fact that they're cold is we just don't have any leads that are going to get us to a suspect. Or, more importantly, we believe we have a suspect or had a suspect, but there was just not enough evidence. The burden of proof is on us to bring it forth, put it in front of a prosecutor. And this is the challenge, is if you try to prosecute without the quality of evidence that you need, that you believe a jury and a judge are going to allow, then ultimately, once that case is adjudicated and the person walks, you really, and you lose, then at that point, it's just as traumatic as if we had just waited.
Right. It just wastes the time and efforts.
So we have to be strategic. You know, when we take a look at these cold cases, and we have a wonderful partnership with Olivet College right now, we're seniors in the criminal justice program, along with their professors, 2 retired lieutenants from Battle Creek Police, along with a retired Battle Creek police officer who also works for the county and the prosecutor's office. All of them together, collectively, they are working on a number of these cases, 4 specifically. But again, they're a challenge because you've got to talk to the families. You have to try to resurface all of those emotions, all of those concerns. And again, it's we can't make any promises when we take a second look at these cases.
How do you view these things as they age? Do you say, well, we come back and look at what we have again periodically, or do you wait until, as you pointed out, Sheriff, a lead comes up? How do you keep these things somewhat active?
Well, unfortunately, we do not have the cold case unit active in Calhoun County anymore. That is something that I would like to get back started, and I'm sure Chief Blocker would as well. But we have 4,000 less police officers in the state of Michigan now than before 9/11. But we're starting to see budgets get a little bit better, agencies adding on and agencies hiring. So if there's one thing that we could do, I think, to put a cold case team back together in Calhoun County would be beneficial. But with these cold cases, oftentimes it just takes a different set of eyes looking at the information. So as Carrie Evans one, I know there's been the cold case team back when it was active looked at it. We've had change in detectives at the sheriff's office several times, and those folks continue to look at it, and that's why we're actually have some new information this time, just a different set of eyes looking at what we have.
And generally, a cold case unit that is disbanded is so because of a budget situation. Is that fair to say?
I think in some cases it's because of a budget situation. It could be that other issues or more current cases are taken away and sap up the resources quickly. I think the challenge with the cold case is certainly on the administrative side, if you're not seeing results after about a 12, 24, 36-month period, you start to wonder, all right, how can I better utilize the resources that I have out there? Because no matter what, there is a cost associated with it. And as time goes on, the cases get colder and colder.
Understood.
But exactly what the sheriff said, not only is it a new perspective, new set of eyes, but also with the added capability of forensic sciences today, we often can take a second look at the evidence itself. And certainly we're experiencing a resurgence in a lot of our criminal sexual conduct cases. Work through the Michigan State Attorney General's office. They have tasked out prosecutors, and that's true here in Calhoun County, our assistant prosecutor, Michelle Richardson, has just done a phenomenal job going back, taking a second look with a lot of these DNA cases from these criminal sexual conduct incidents, and we're able to get convictions. And I think we're well on our way of, I think, our third solid conviction here, which is an incredible metric when you think they've only been at it about 15 months now.
All right. Well, that's positive news. A few more minutes with Chief Jim Blocker and Sheriff Matt Saxton. Missing persons cases come up from time to time. As I mentioned, there's one in Kalamazoo County now that's been a little quiet the last week or two, but that one's been getting some headlines. How do you approach those kinds of cases when maybe there isn't an immediate lead?
Well, and when you first started talking to us about coming on, the initial conversation was supposed to be about missing persons, and it kind of switched over to cold case. But, we have in Calhoun County the Mary Lands missing persons case. She's been declared dead. But we just received a call the other day from a person that went missing in 1991, the family of that person. So with the integration of the internet and families of missing now searching and finding Jane Doe's or John Doe's deceased and found throughout the United States, or the world for that matter, we had a call 4 weeks ago of a gal that went missing back in 1991, and their family believes that Lake County, Florida, found that body back in 1991.
Oh, my.
So we're in the process now of finding surviving family to get DNA to ship that information off to either prove or disprove that Jane Doe found in Lake County, Florida, is the missing woman from Penfield area back in 1991.
Boy, when you think about that, the notion that someone can go missing and maybe they've left, now you have a whole country or a whole world to try and search to make that connection.
And oftentimes with the missing, like in this case, she left with a male subject. So did she go willingly or did she go against her will? Is the hard part in many of the missing person cases. Oftentimes those folks leave under their own free will and then have bad consequences once they're gone.
And all of these cases, cold or missing or otherwise, they're a joint venture between the family and those that love the victim and law enforcement. It isn't just in our lane that we go and look and have all the resources. I'm always amazed at most of the cases that we have, whether it's a recent homicide or a more complicated, complex case, where it's family members and friends that are the real force multipliers, help us do our job, because they can sometimes get so much more out of other people, witnesses and friends, and certainly those that are willing or unwilling to speak to the police themselves. So, again, it's not surprising to us. And if there's one word we would like to get out, the sheriff and I, is that, don't be silent. Continue to come forward. Give good advice. Share what you know, even what you think you know, and allow us to work with you to try and figure it out.
That's an interesting way to phrase that. Even what you think you know. Sometimes people might have a key to something and they don't think it's significant.
Exactly.
Yeah. Before we go today, Sheriff, you're investigating a playground arson today?
Yes. Last night we had an incident at B. Carroll Hinton Park on 27th and Frisbee Street in the city of Springfield. That's obviously a fresh and ongoing investigation. The playground is a total loss, unfortunately. We're still waiting on a dollar figure from that, but it obvious intentionally set arson situation that we're asking anybody with information to either contact Silent Observer or dispatch.
And obviously that Silent Observer option is an anonymous way to do it, if it has to be that way.
And could result in the payout of up to $1,000 for a tip leading to the arrest and bind over of a suspect.
All right. Thanks as always to you both.
Thank you. Have a wonderful week.
You too.
Thank you, Richard.
We'll stay in touch. Chief Jim Blocker and Sheriff Matt Saxton.